Good evening, everyone. Today I will be introducing the Honorable Ruben Hinojosa, former U.S. Congressman. Congressman Ruben Hinojosa, a longtime businessman and native of the Rio Grande Valley, was elected to represent Texas's 15th Congressional District in November of 1996. The congressman served on 2 House committees, Education and the Workforce and Financial Services. He is also a co-chair in Democratic Caucus Education Task Force and in this capacity developed a strong policy during his 20 years in Congress. Hinojosa has distinguished himself as an advocate for education, Social Security, healthcare, agriculture, veterans issues, economic development, and infrastructure projects. He demonstrated his ability to serve as a bipartisan consensus builder when he helped in the fight to create an emergency relief packet providing $25 billion over a 4-year period for farmers and ranchers who suffered devastating losses due to natural disasters from 1998 through 2001. Prior to his being elected in the House of Representatives, Congressman Hinojosa served 20 years as a president and chief financial officer of a family-owned food processing company, H&H Foods. With over 300 employees, H&H has received national awards for recognition from the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C. Both national awards presented by President Ronald Reagan at the White House in 1983 and 1987. Born in Ed Couch, Congressman Hinojosa graduated Mercedes High School and earned a BBA and MBA from the University of Texas and in Edinburgh, respectively. Please help me welcome the Honorable Ruben Hinojosa to the stage.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for that generous introduction, Julianne. I was very impressed sitting next to you and learning a little bit about you, El Paso, and all the things that you have done. I was also very impressed with everybody at our table because they shared with me their interests, where they came from. They knew who their congressman was. And all I can say is that as I look from left to right, I see close to 100 students and lots of volunteers, University of Texas alumni, who are giving up their time to counsel and to advise these great future leaders that are before me. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that it makes my heart swell with pride to see the great potential that is before me. But before my prepared remarks, to tell you a little bit about how I am just like you. When I was a junior, finishing my junior year to become a senior, I can picture where I was, and it's very much like you. Before my prepared remarks, I want to share with you that my wife of almost 28 years, we have 5 children, and she graduated from the university, from Texas A&M University in the School of Architecture. And in her family, there are 6 who graduated from A&M, including her father, who's a physicist, and brothers and sisters. And my youngest of the 5 children just graduated from A&M and got accepted to NYU in a dual program, earning a master's and a doctorate degree in occupational therapy. And so I have a great deal of understanding, but more, I have a passion and a real strong commitment to education, because I stand before you as the 8th of 11 children, all born in Texas, to Mexican immigrant parents who came during the Mexican Civil War back in 1910. My mother was 5 years old. She came through El Paso down to McAllen. My father was 9 years old, and they crossed into Texas because his father got killed in that Civil War. And they met as adults. They married, had 11 children, and I'm number 8. And thanks to my mother, she made sure that we went to school every day with a nice clean shirt and shorts or pants, whatever the case was be, and that we did our homework after school. And she would always tell us, I want you to graduate from high school and go to college. So I see you and I picture myself at your age and how challenging it was to make decisions. What should I study? And what should I get involved in? Some have already become class officers, student council officers, and National Society officers, and so forth. And I congratulate you for it, because I did that. I went to Boise State, and I got elected to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Texas. And I even sat in that chair here in Austin. And as a result of that training, I ran for office in high school, and I became the senior class president. And I knew how to organize a campaign, and I went on to graduate from UT. And I want to tell you that I was always wanting to run for the local school board, and then for the Texas State Board of Education, and then for the Community College Board of Trustees, and then for Congress. I ran 19 campaigns from what I learned in Boise State. I won 19 and lost 0. So you see, there is a lot to be learned right here. And I hope that those of you that have the opportunity to run for an elected office, that you do it. Our government at every level is very important. And I am going to be talking about the things that I consider to be very important, at least it was to me. And my thoughts are that you will probably listen to some of the stories, and you hopefully will say, if he could do it, I can do it. And that's what I hope to do. I hope to inspire you. I hope to motivate you. I hope to help you as you are learning how to collaborate. And I can say this, that the many things that I attempted to do because naysayers said couldn't be done, gave me encouragement to take on bigger things. I mentioned to you that I was on the local school board and we had a $3 million budget. I went to the Texas State Board of Education, and suddenly we're dealing with a $10 billion budget. I said, wow. Well, at every level, it got bigger and better, more challenging. You all have been assigned assignments, and you find that they are challenging and full of problems, and that it's not easy to solve. But if I can give you one recommendation that you can take with you, it would be the skill of forming coalitions at every level. One example, as a young man out of college, already working in the family business, I learned that we needed to have a community college, but you have to have a taxing district. And it had been attempted 3 times to pass a proposition electorally and voting by the public that you're willing to be taxed to have a community college. You need to have a taxing district. Well, they tried it 3 times and they failed. This is Hidalgo County. Population at that time was about 600,000 people. Bottom line is that I had already proven that I could win elections, and one that I had won earlier was the creation of a magnet high school system like Houston, just like yours, Joshua. The magnet high schools of Houston really impressed me as a member of the Texas State Board of Education. And we went to have our regular monthly meeting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Houston. When I saw what I did, I said to myself, we need something like this in South Texas. So I called the Region 1 Education Service Center in Edinburgh. I said, can you call all the superintendents and let me speak to them? Because I was their representative as a State Board of Education member. And I told them, this is what I saw, and this is what I think we should do. But they rolled their eyes and said, we're too poor, we're an agricultural region, we just can't do what Houston does. So, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to reserve seats on an airplane from Harlingen to Houston, and I'm going to take those of you superintendents who want to go see it. And we did. The end result is that 2.5 years later, going through lots of hurdles like you're going through right now to solve a problem, I led a group from Rio Grande City, Mission, all the way to Brownsville and Raymondville, and convinced them to give it a try. And we passed the election 57% to 43%. And using that same model that we did for the magnet schools, the leadership of the Rio Grande Valley in Starr County and Hidalgo County asked me, help us create a community college now. And we got it past 57 or 59% to the difference, 43% against it. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason I have such a love and such a passion for education is that it can transform regions like ours in the Rio Grande Valley, which was one of the second poorest in the country, second at the bottom to Mississippi, one of the areas that is so poor in Mississippi. We were graduating 55% of our kindergartners from high school. And our college attendance was like 6,000, 7,000 at Edinburgh. And our community college was barely hitting 2,000 or 3,000. What a transformation has occurred by increasing the investment by the state and federal government. Listen to these statistics of the improvement. Our graduation rate the last 2 years in Region 1 Education Service Center from Brownsville through Edinburgh, McAllen to Laredo, 88.5% graduated. Our community college has 35,000, South Texas College. Our University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, combined Edinburgh, Brownsville, 30,000. Ladies and gentlemen, what a transformation, creating good paying jobs. And as I told these young men and women at my table, as a member of Congress on the Education Committee, where I served as chairman for the subcommittee for higher ed, overseeing all the community colleges at all the universities, private and public, I learned that we need to advise our students, young men and young women, as I'm doing to you tonight. And that is that you look at what the University of Texas puts out on the internet as their study of the many, many sectors that are available to you. And the ones that I have been focusing on, my committee, has been STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. In the last 2 years, I added the ampersand and the letters M-E. We created this booklet, which you are going to be receiving the information on how to get on it and print it yourself. This is an explanation of best practices that we have used to create our what we call college-ready high schools in South Texas. There's 40 of them now. And all that has happened in the last 8 years. And along with that, you're also going to get the website for this one that was created by the U.S. Department of Energy. And the title of it is Girls of Energy, because they hadn't been told that they could be in the areas of oil and gas and renewable energy, including the turbines and the panels. Ladies and gentlemen, the salaries paid is unbelievable in STEM and me. Now, it's funny for you to be hearing it from somebody who studied in the School of Business Administration. But I had no one tell me that I could do these others. My father, who was a businessman, said, "You go get an education and come back and teach us how to work smart." Because we work 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and we barely can send you to college. Ladies and gentlemen, you will have to choose. But make smart decisions by studying what is available in sectors that you hadn't even thought about. Some of you could be astronauts. Some of you could be congressmen, congresswomen. It's amazing that there's more girls in this class of 75 than there are boys. But it doesn't surprise me because I've seen the statistics during the 44 years that I've been involved in policy writing from local, state to federal. And if women do well, the country does well. There's no question about it. I tell my 4 daughters and 1 son, but I tell the girls, remember this, your daddy said it. You can do anything the boys do and sometimes better. And sometimes they do it on heels. My wife is a testament to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that I thought a lot about what I should spend my time on, and I have prepared remarks, as you can see. And I think that I'd rather just talk from experience, because there's so many opportunities out there. And let me say that when I graduated from UT Austin, which was 1962, here in the School of Business, Hispanics were 2% out of the 20,000 student population. Girls in the School of Business were rare. I don't think I could count them on my 2 hands. None of the classes in the School of Business junior and senior year had girls. Today, as I said earlier, 55 to 57% of the college graduates are female. So you can see why I want to be sure that I deliver the message to you young ladies and to the women advisors that we have as alumni, that there are many great opportunities. I belong to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. I was their chairman. I served on the other group called just CHC, Congressional Hispanic Caucus Members of Congress, and when I started, there were 12 Hispanics in Congress, Democrats, and about 3 Republicans. When I left, there were 33 with 29 being Democrats and the difference Republican. All of this to say that we have increased the numbers that are making decisions on how to spend over $3 trillion in our budget. And those of you who have been fortunate enough to get enrolled in Gear Up programs, I am one of the 2 authors of the Gear Up program in 1998, together with Congressman Chaka Fattah from Pennsylvania. That was the first big project that I worked on. And I was invited to the White House to see President Bill Clinton sign the Gear Up program from legislation into law, and had it appropriated with appropriators, because I was an authorizer, and then there's the appropriators, and they gave us $100 million to start off with. But the Rio Grande Valley, because Bill Clinton came here in February of 1998, the second year that I was in Congress, told the Secretary Dick Riley, when Congressman Hinojosa comes to visit you, Dick, you pay close attention because that group has lots of potential, but we have neglected that South Texas area, and we need to invest some money down there. And you help Hinojosa. Well, let me tell you, this last budget before Trump came in, $320 million for the Gear Up program, helping, I would say, 60% of the beneficiaries of that program are students of color, Hispanic, African American, and Asian American. And that is one of the factors that turned the Rio Grande Valley and transformed it into a very successful area as it is today. But there are 25 programs. If you look up HEAP, Hispanic Education Action Plan, which was created when I got to Congress, we have 25 programs that include Title V, which is Hispanic Serving Institutions, who were getting $10 million then, today $221 million. African Americans, what we call the historically black colleges and universities were getting $110 million. Today they're getting $300 million. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you the way it is. There's no doubt in my mind. When I got there in 1997 and I started looking at figures and numbers and all that, and I am very good at numbers, I can tell you that. That's probably one of my strengths. I said, how can we be so neglected? Well, we didn't have representation. And that's why I say, I hope that you get elected so that eventually you can also become state legislators, federal legislators, lawyers, doctors, STEM and me. Those are where we have the greatest demand and the best paying jobs. And so all I can say is, thank you for inviting me to come and speak to you. I am encouraged. I really am, because listening to each person here at my table, I know that they're a cross-section of what the others are, of the 75 students, and I know that you are thinking of what school to go to and what major. Well, I've given you food for thought. If you have any questions, I hope that there will be time sometime at the appropriate time, and I'll be glad to take them. So again, it's an honor to be here at my campus. I'm a big Longhorn fan, and I can say that I love A&M too, because I have 6 in-laws and my wife, and they've invited me to possibly become a, they'd say, distinguished visiting professor at both of the flagships, and I hope to do that now that I am retired from Congress. Thank you again.
Are there any questions? We can come around with the microphone if you want to stand up.
Many questions that I have for you. One of them being, when you're introducing a piece of legislation that you know a lot of people won't like or that a lot of people will disagree with, how do you keep that alive? How do you make them feel what you do? Like you said with the education one.
You asked an excellent question. I thought that I could do it by myself, but that was impossible. So I called on my colleagues in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, where we were 12. Again, I said earlier, at the ending of my remarks, that we grew to over 30. But the answer to your question is the skill of creating coalitions. And I invited the chairman of the Black Caucus, Barbara Lee from California, and the chairwoman of the Hispanic Caucus, Nidia Velazquez from New York City, and Judy Hsu from Los Angeles for the Asian American. And I said, we need to bring together our 85 members of the three caucuses. And if you agree, I will even go and speak to the chair of the Women's Caucus so that we can have over 100. Because it takes 218 votes to pass legislation in the House. If you get to 115 members as sponsors of a bill, it gains traction and it begins to move. And that's how I was able to introduce and pass the GEAR Up program in conjunction with the Black Caucus member, Chaka Fatah. But the Women's Caucus, both sides of the aisle, and there's 3 times more women in the Democratic caucus than there are in the Republican conference. But it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat when you're talking about education. It affects all of our districts. And so they would come in and vote with us. And that's how we were able to. And that's why I say you all are learning to do collaboration, but you also need to learn the skill of persuasion so that you can build these kinds of coalitions as I did with the Tri-Caucus. And when I was elected to be the chair of the Subcommittee for Higher Education, which oversees all the school higher community and university, community colleges and universities, members of the Black Caucus pulled me aside and said the wisest and smartest thing we did in the Black Caucus was to elect you to be the chairman of that subcommittee, because we never dreamed that we would get out of that 110 million, and now we're getting 300 million. And the Hispanics, again, from 10 million to 221 million. So it's building coalitions is the answer to your question. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just want to thank you for your service. I'm actually from Hidalgo County. And also, specifically, I actually went to the ISD that you founded in the Magnet School District.
The magnet schools?
Yeah, I went to
I
Beta.
am the father of the magnet schools that we copied Houston.
Yeah, so I went to
But
Beta,
we're
which
better
was,
than Houston now.
back then it was the teaching academy, but because of all the resources that you provided, it benefited me, and I get to come to school here. So I wanted to ask, what were some challenges that you faced when you were first setting up that ISD?
Good question. We didn't have a magnet high school system. We only had about 200 students who were disabled and needed to have a special program. And I think that the taxing district for that was created by Texas State Senator from Edinburgh, with 1 penny per $100 valuation. And when you have the poverty that we had in the valley when it was created, it was peanuts. It was a pittance what amount of money they had. So when I went to Houston as a member of the State Board of Education, and I saw that 70% of the students were Black, and that they were graduating 97% of those students in the magnet schools in Houston, I said, we need to bring up the graduation rate and things will really begin to click. The challenge was to create a taxing district. Number 2, that there was a lot of fighting by the superintendents who would say, I don't want to lose my best students from Brownsville to the magnet school where we created it in Mercedes, because it was in the middle of the valley. And we got lots of opposition by the school boards. So Hector Uribe was the state senator from Brownsville, and he put in a requirement that the coalition that I had of 13 superintendents and 2 vocational state officers was that unless we got every school district that was going to send students to the magnet schools would agree to the taxing district, and that we would be busing the students. Well, it's just like you students today. You were given a problem and you come up with solutions and it didn't work, you tanked it. You got a solution and you said that won't work either. Well, let me tell you, I had a whole bunch of those problems, and I was the head of the feasibility committee, and I was the state board member representing all these superintendents. So I decided, all right, I can't do it alone, but I've got 13 members on this committee. I'm going to assign 2 school districts to each one of you, and you're going to get on the agenda of the local school board and go make a pitch. And wherever you get into something that is almost impossible, like I had in Harlingen, like I had in Edinburgh, and like I had in Weslaco, I said, I will go with you and I will make the pitch. 100% of those school boards said yes, but it took 2.5 years of persistence and persistence and persistence to get through all these hurdles. Now, that was the local school boards. Then we had to pass it through the State Board of Education. And lastly, we had to pass it through the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board here in Austin, where Raymond Paredes is our commissioner and an advisory member to this organization. A wonderful friend of mine. And I came to all these schools, and if I hadn't gone through the programs like you're going through here now, I would never have learned what it was to collaborate, to form coalitions, and to learn that it can't be just my way. Oftentimes I had to say, well, we've got to compromise. We've got to compromise. But we won all the way. And you've got to, again, have that persistence to be able to win at the end. And let me tell you, don't think that I did. I may have won 19 out of my elections, but when you start dealing with budget and monies, be it local, state, or federal, you're going to find times when you will lose the fight. But you got to come back. You hit the wall, you fall flat on your butt, get up, and come back again in a different way, and again, you get the input from those of the team that you have created. That was an excellent question, thank you. Yes, sir. Please stand up.
Hello, sir. I am Satya Rostow from Lafayette, Texas.
Really?
And well, sir, I would like to begin by mentioning how honored I am to meet you. And how excited I am too, because I am a CHCI alumnus. 2 years ago, I got to meet Philemon Vela, and I've always wanted to meet you, sir. And didn't realize that I would get to today. So I would like to mention, it's an honor, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to congratulate you because I myself have reaped the progress that all your programs have made. And I would like to make an inquiry as to the future of Gear Up.
The Gear Up.
Yes.
The Gear Up has $330 million, and the new president has sent in his proposed budget, and the new Secretary of Education, who knows very little about education, in my opinion, made a proposed cut of $119 million for this next budget of 2018. So the answer to that is that we have a team representing, or I would say started with the nucleus of Region 1 Education Service Center, who made a PowerPoint presentation a week ago. Now, up here in Braggadocious, they honored me and one of the heads of Region 1, Dr. Tina Atkins, for the work that we did for Gear Up. And they showed a Gear Up report of, I believe it was started in 1998 until now, which is about 18 years. And it's amazing, absolutely amazing, how the improvements of our students, because the Gear Up program is one that uses federal money to create what we call the Reading Coalition, and actually it's got another name, South Texas Reading Coalition, in conjunction with RIF, R-I-F, which is an acronym for Reading is Fundamental. And they get federal government money and give us books in South Texas, which we give to the children when they're in pre-kinder all the way through about the 7th grade. And we encourage them to read because we learned from the Chinese. I led a coalition of members of Congress to China to find out how it was that they had such high graduation rate and the international competition of countries on education. They're always in the top 5. And I asked the question with our coalition, how is it that you all can be in the top 5 and we're number 38? China's income per capita is like $1,500 a year, and ours is many, many times higher. And the answer was given to me, or to us, our delegation, reading plus early reading plus writing equals success in school. And we put that into the criteria that is allowable for the expense of the literacy program in the Gear Up program. And then so many mistakes were being made in choices of how to finance higher education. And you know that because you all are going through that problem with your parents. How are we going to pay for college? Making those decisions needed to have financial literacy. We incorporated into the Gear Up program. In the last McAllen Convention Center, we had 1,000 people, 750 students, and 250 parents. We had 15 banks, partners there, trying to teach the students and the parents how to make wise decisions on how to finance college education, financial literacy. All these are components of Gear Up. But in answer to your question, I am concerned. I said we need to send a team to Washington and meet with the appropriators for the education component and show them what Gear Up has done for this South Texas area. And by doing that, we don't have to take the proposed budget amount for Gear Up that the new secretary and the new president have given us. We have to fight to stay at the $300 to $400 million amount for the Gear Up program. But it doesn't happen magically. It takes the kind of passion and commitment and going up there, because it costs money. It's expensive as hell to live in Washington, and for our people to go up there and spend 2 nights and 3 days, work in the halls of Congress and talking to the appropriate. But that's the way that the big cities do it. Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Fort Worth. That's what they do, and that's what we started doing since I got to Congress. That's what I hope you all can convince parents and teachers and administrators and others to send a team up there of 12, 15 people to do this. That's the answer.
Thank you, sir.
There's one of you, the one on the right, far right.
Thank you. Congressman Hinojosa, pleasure to meet you. Thank you for your service. I'm from El Paso, Texas, a town of many immigrants. So I speak on behalf of much of El Paso. What hope is there in the United States Congress within that of the immigration policies for them in the future? Like, what hope do they have within that of Congress?
First, let me say that I went to Congress in the election of 1996 with Congressman Sylvester Reyes from El Paso. And he and I were friends, real good friends. He was an outstanding member of Congress. And today he is retired, and Beto O'Rourke is your congressman for El Paso. I think that there's a lot of similarity between El Paso and the Rio Grande Valley. Lots of similarities. But yet there are differences. There's a lot of coalition with New Mexico and other states that are close to El Paso. If you would repeat your question a little bit louder, I think that I may be able to hear it clearly.
Okay. So my question was, what hope is there for a lot of the immigrants here in Texas, for that of the immigration policies, those who come here illegally or that are trying to get their citizenship?
So you're
but they
concerned
really
about
can't?
those who are of undocumented families studying here,
That's correct.
such as our dreamers and others that are not even out of high school.
That's correct.
That's a very serious problem. I would say that in the next election in 2018, healthcare and immigration reform, in my opinion, have to be among the top 5 most important issues that people will vote on. And I told you I stand before you as the proud son of immigrant parents from Mexico. We have tens of thousands of families like that. But our country was built by immigrants. We're not the first ones here in this country. The Indians were here. And so for those who did not want to allow the immigration reform legislation that was passed in the Senate back in 2014, it passed by 67 out of 100 votes. I was chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. I went to the White House and sat in the Oval Office with President Obama and accompanied by Javier Becerra, the Democratic chairman of the Democratic Party, and Luis Gutierrez from Chicago, Illinois, who was the chairman of the CHC Immigration Task Force. And we went with our guns loaded to show him how we could get it passed if he stepped in and did certain things. But he told us, look, I am 100% in favor of what you all are presenting me as the answer to get it passed. But if the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, and the leadership of those that they called they were the Patriots, what were they? Ultra-conservative. There's a group of about 44 Republicans who were definitely against it and would not allow that legislation be debated in the committees and then to go to the House floor. We did that for 3 full years. They just never allowed it. I just hope that all that has happened in this crisis, this turmoil that we see every single week under the Trump administration, under his leadership, that will turn things around in 2018, and that both Republicans and Democrats will see that we lost the bipartisanship that we had under Bill Clinton and started disappearing under George W. Bush and eliminated here in this last few years under President Obama because they did not want to accept the changes that made education for all possible and all the civil rights issues that were so important. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why I say to you, young ladies and young men, you must get involved in elections and in voting and getting your relatives and your neighbors to vote. You do that, and you will change our country. That is the answer on immigration reform, and I had it as one of my top 4 most important issues that I fought for these 20 years, and immigration was there. I'm loved by all the immigrants that ever heard me speak, as they did Luis Gutierrez, as they did Javier Becerra, and a few others like Grace Napolitano and Lucille Roybal Allard and others that just gave it 110% effort. But we were in the minority. And when you're in the minority, you suck air. You have to depend on those in the majority, and that's why you have to persuade them. But it's not that easy. So that's the answer to your question. I'm going to take one more question because I've gone way over time. Okay. I've got to come to this side. You're next. You're the last one. Yeah.
So I'm actually from the Valley myself. I'm from San Benito, Texas. So, yeah, San Benito? Same thing. But you're actually one of the ones that inspired me to major in government on the national level with the Eddie Lucios, on the local level inspiring me to major in government. And how do we as alumni now inspire those students in the Valley that don't maybe have the resources to travel up here and take a tour of these amazing universities they have access to and get away from that bubble of staying put there thinking they might not be able to make a change?
That's a tough question. It takes resources. And I just don't know how to answer your question because that has been a problem since 44 years ago when I had my very first election in 1972. Once you, young people, 17, 18-year-olds, get out of your big city of Houston or your small cities in the Rio Grande Valley and go see other parts through an internship like the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute or like the Bill Archer Fellowship Program that's offered here out of UT. I am talking to a group of community leaders to help create the Ruben Hinojosa Fellowship Program modeled after the Bill Archer program that's now 27 years in and ongoing, so that we can send more students to Washington to get that experience for one semester. The very first group, the year that I got in 1997, was only like about 7 interns because we had such a small budget. It was like $350,000 of our budget. When I was the chairman, we had grown and grown and grown, and we had 45 interns and about 15 fellows each semester. The fellows were 1 year, the interns were 1 semester, including one group in the summer. So we really grew it. But look at the difference in our budget. It was, under me, those 2 years that I was there, I had 12 million and 14 million, and we did it by raising money with sponsors that included Toyota, ExxonMobil, Marathon, Shell Oil, Hyundai, GE, you name it. We had at least 100 sponsors. But it takes a lot of time away from my congressional work to raise that kind of money. But that's what it took. And they were all Latinos and all Latinas. Now the historically black colleges and universities, they have the Black Caucus, they're 45 members. They raised more money than we did. They were very united and very strong. I learned a great deal from the Black Caucus. I guarantee you, had it not been for that lesson that they taught me, I would never have been able to accomplish putting coalitions together, as I described to you earlier, and raising the kind of money that it takes, resources. How you raise money here, for that example that you gave in the Valley, you have to go to the community leaders who understand the importance of the internship programs, because that's where they learn it. It's been a pleasure being with you, and I wish I could take another 10 or 15 questions, but you'll be here all night. Thank you very much.